Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this event. Thanks for taking time out to tune in for this. My name is Charu, and I'm from the Outreach and Content team at Aviyel. Today, we have with us a very distinguished guest, Shivani Bhardwaj from OISF. Before we get to the gist of the event, a little bit about Aviyel. Aviyel works towards incentivizing active open source communities and achieving financial independence and increased adoption of open source projects. We are building a knowledge sharing platform that offers seamless and guaranteed exchange of knowledge, support, and content around open source projects between the open source community and the businesses and developers who build great products using them. In Aviyel's journey to create a sustainable open source community, we believe inclusivity goes hand in hand. This session is part of our Women in Open Source series, where we celebrate the achievements of distinguished women in open source. Today with us, we have Shivani Bhardwaj. Shivani is a seasoned developer currently working full-time on the Surikata project under the Open Information Security Foundation. She's been involved in open source communities since her college days when she was exposed to open source through the Outreachy program. Shivani is also the recipient of the coveted Linux Foundation Training Scholarship in 2016, for which she was selected from among thousands of applicants. Notably, Shivani was also one of the primary volunteers of Linux Chicks India in the Delhi NCR chapter. Linux Chicks is a global community for women who like Linux, and it's aimed at promoting FOSS and related projects among women and other minorities in technology in the tech industry. In this session, Shivani will be talking about her journey into open source and the career opportunities within open source, how she did it and how you can too. Over to Shivani. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Charo. Thank you for inviting me over. Okay, trying to share the correct screen. Perfect. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Shivani, and I'll be talking about making a career in open source. This is a very personal experience influence talk, how I was able to get a job and make a career in open source. I am currently working with an open source project. So how did that come about and how all of it happened, and what are the ways you could probably also contribute to open source and you could make money out of open source. So here's a little something about me. I am a software developer working for about over 5 years now. And out of that, over 3.5 years, I've been working with open source. I am currently working with Rust, C, and Python at OISF, which is a nonprofit based out of US to promote and support the development of Surikata IDS. And I am failing and trying again to learn new things on a daily basis and coming to terms with the fact that it may just never end. So yeah, here we have a bunch of my social media handles and my website if you want to know more about me or want to get connected, if you'd like. So here I have my bumpy journey in open source. There are 4 phases, I think I consider, in which phase 1 was learning about the term open source when I learned about Linux as a part of operating system course in college. We were all supposed to install Linux, and when I found out that we could get it for free, I was very, very surprised and felt really bad for paying all the money so far for Windows operating system. I remember when I had bought my laptop, they had a package where they were giving it without Windows, but I chose the entire Windows Microsoft suite that comes along, and that cost me extra. And then I was here looking at an operating system which was offering all that there was, and I felt, wow, how did I never know about this? But still, it was not enough to know about open source. So there were a few very nice seniors in my college who started celebrating Software Freedom Day. I think it's somewhere around September. So I attended a few of those events and got a bit more knowledge about what all free software was there. And there were so many of free software things that I was using myself on my Linux system, which I did not know anything about. So that was the beginning, and that was phase one. So it was all cool. I decided it's nothing to be nervous about. I got this, and we just move forward. Then came phase two, when I accidentally came across Outreachy program as a part of the open source course, operating system course in my college and learning Linux. I became curious and I wanted to be one of the cool kids who were running Arch Linux and had all kinds of, the system straight out of Nix porn on Reddit, by the way. So I was trying all of those things, and I was trying to get my own, I was trying to have everything, configured by myself. And I looked for a Mutt email client, and it was very difficult to configure. I was not able to send emails with that. And I tried to look for how to fix that, and I landed on kernelnewbies.org, where there was a tutorial about how to make Mutt work. And there was a link on the top of it, which was join here for OPW, which was Outreachy Program for Women. I had no idea what it was, but I just clicked there and it auto-subscribed me to a Google group. And a few months later, I got an email that OPW was renamed to Outreachy, and it's no longer a program just for women, and see how we've expanded it. And then I looked up the program and I saw that there was Linux kernel, and that's what I was most interested in back at that time. So I decided to contribute to Linux kernel. Now, during the contribution phase, the patches were very, very beginner level, but one thing that I learned after I contributed to Linux kernel was that every open source project has a different contribution guideline, and Linux kernels is a very elaborate one. So it takes a lot of time to just get the process right, how you have to send the patches and all of that. Your patches can get rejected multiple times, even if it's a typo fix, because of all the things that you have to do. So that was a very elaborate process. Once I had learned that, I thought, okay, now I'm set for all open source projects, but that was not the case. So always read out the contribution guideline of every open source project. It will vary from which platform they're hosted on to how their own workflow is about things. So I got selected and worked on Linux kernel's NetFilter project because I was also interested in networking a bit. I had no idea what NetFilter project would bring me or what the actual project was about, just a bit overview, and I just applied. So yeah, I had to tell myself, don't worry, I'm doing great. And because it was all very new terms, So yeah, save this meme for yourself when you're feeling like things are getting difficult. Okay, so phase 3. After my Outreachy internship, I was jobless for about 6 months. And it was not that I did not get any job offers or I could not have had any opportunities. I was given opportunities even by the organization with whom I work currently. But a part of me just felt like I wasn't ready for that. And I knew they were good opportunities. So I just wanted to wait to be the best version of myself to join these projects. Pro tip, don't do that. whenever opportunity presents itself, just take it. It's probably not wise to wait. Probably you should, yes, you should make an informed decision, ask people around how you should go about doing things and interacting with people. But if there is an opportunity, do that. So after 6 months, in these 6 months, I got connected. I stayed connected to open source through a few communities and meetup groups nearby. A friend introduced me to one, and then I attempted to restart an open source community within Delhi, which also got expanded to Jammu and Kerala, where there were interested students in starting regional or campus chapters. The community was Linux Chicks India, as Charu talked about. So now things were expanding. I was getting connected with open source, but I was still working on proprietary software. So I don't know, I wanted to change that a bit. And then I decided to reach out to OISF, where I work. They had reached out to me in that period, and I had denied for the same reason. I did not feel ready. And this time I thought, okay, let's just reach out to them and see if it works out or not. And I did, and they accepted me. And about 3 years later, I'm still there working with open source and getting paid to work on open source project. The open source project Endpoint is Suricata IDS. So basically, open source got me a job in open source, because the reason I got connected with OISF was because after working with NetFilter as a part of my outreach internship, I was invited to attend NetFilter annual workshop, in Amsterdam. And there I met a bunch of really awesome people who honestly I did not know how awesome they were when I met them, when you were so oblivious to everything. And I realized that later. And that's where I had also met a few people from OISF. The team was even smaller, so I think it was most of the team back in that time. And they remembered me, and they offered me a job even after that. And then I reached out to them, and they accepted. So one great way to get a job in open source is by contributing to open source. It's not necessary that you contribute on the same project, but even if you do in a community of projects, sister projects or something, there is a chance that you will be noticed. And if people like you, then you can definitely be asked for to work as a paid developer. And that was the breezy, happy moment, and that's how the life came out to be. Not. So this is how mostly it is currently, because there is something wrong with the work or anything, but things can get difficult, and they never stop getting difficult. So I keep on going back and forth between these. So that's a real world scenario if you have to consider any. Now, coming to what open source software is, just a sec. Okay, so I looked up what open source software gives in search results, and I picked up two top internet definitions. I think I like the second one better. That is from Wikipedia, so thanks to whoever wrote that definition over there. It says open source software is computer software that is released under a license in which the copyright holder grants the users the right to use, study, change, or distribute the software and its source code to anyone and for any purpose. So there are many licenses, open source software licenses out there, many. So many. I recently learned that there were so many of them. I am not an expert on this matter, of course. So license violation is a very serious offense. So I don't know about the all the things that are involved that go under when such a thing happens. But from a developer perspective, I can tell you that one of the widely used licenses is GPL, different versions of it. And if you are developing an open source software and you are considering a particular license, I've learned from my mentors that you should always check the compatibility of licenses before pulling them in. That means if you are building a project and you need certain libraries for that, then you should check that whatever is the license of that open source library and whatever is the license of your open source project are compatible. Under GPL, one is free to redistribute or not redistribute their code. So you are free to choose, and you have the right to sell copies, and it's up to you whether you want to release the project or not. So these are all the things I picked up from GNU.org, which I have linked over here. They also have a very good section of compatibility with GPL for all the licenses. Not all, I think they say that they miss a few, but it's an incomplete list, but many licenses, the popular ones are there, and you can check out if something is compatible with GPL. Now, open source as an open resume. Since you are making contributions in public domain, they are, of course, available for anyone to see. So that takes out, the 5-stage interview process that is generally required in non-open source companies. So your Git profile speaks for you, and it matters. I have not mentioned the platforms here, so you can choose for yourself whether you want to do it on GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. And to be honest, unless you're making your own project, it's not up to you which profile you're going to build. It depends on the project that you want to contribute to, if that project is available on GitHub or GitLab or somewhere else. So depending on that, your Git profile matters. So Git is a great skill to have if you want to get into open source, actually probably for any software these days. Everybody is using version control, as far as I know. So it matters. So make it, build it, and of course that matters if you are a developer or a documentation writer for a software project. But if you do other things like illustration, you are free to showcase your work at any other platform, and you should do that. If it's something that you cannot put on GitHub or GitLab, maybe you can put it there as well. I don't really know what the files for such things look like, but find out the platform where you can showcase your work, and please do that, and always link them, because they are an open resume for you. So if you have a website, you probably don't need to print out and send resumes to people. You can just link your profiles and people can see what you're capable of, what your skill set is, how you've grown in the past few years, so how much you're capable of growing. So there is no scope of doubt. Your profile is much more visible. There are much higher chances of getting competing job offers, which could also be open source. But I have seen people who contribute to open source get job offers from proprietary companies, which are using those open source projects or are trying to build something of their own on the same lines. So that might be great as well. We'll be talking about that a bit later. So yes, open source can work as an open resume for you. And working full-time with open source. It does happen. I am working full-time with open source, and there are a few other members in my team as well. So of course there are lesser jobs than proprietary, but I think they're increasing. Um, you should always research a bit about your interest, and if you're not looking like the scat while researching, you're probably not researching enough. So think twice when you're researching. Find out open source projects that align with your interests. And it's also okay if you don't know what your interests are and you just want to go about contributing to any open source project and later on want to change it. That's also okay. So it becomes a bit easier if you know about your interests, so that you can build your profile on that. But it's also okay to have a diverse profile in which you have contributed to multiple things. Start contributing, because there are no downsides to that. Even if it's not a paid opportunity, you have more contributions to show off, you have an open resume, and the chance to get hired, like we just talked about. Finding career opportunities in open source. So like I said, in my experience as well, most open source projects prefer hiring people from within the community because it's cozy and comfortable. You know what I mean? Look at this. Yeah. So become a part of their community, start making little contributions, become visible, help folks on their forums, issues, etc. Get help, that also counts. Write or update documentation. These are all the things, and maybe I'm missing out a bunch of things here, which can help you get visibility within a community, can help you, can help people trust you that you are an ideal person to fit into their team. So it's easier for people to hire you, because let's be realistic. Even if there are open source organizations paying people to work on their projects, they do not have the kind of money required for a 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many step interview process, right? So this is the easiest way for them to trust somebody and hire them based on their skills as well, of course. Now, okay, this is the continuation slide, which I forgot about. Okay, so you should figure out how you want to become a contributor. Now, this is a very personal thing, so you have to figure this out for yourself. Because open source is a lot of things, right? There are a lot of projects which are open source. So do you want to be employed by an organization that supports a project? I mean, open source project here. Do you want to be employed by a proprietary company that has its own open source project, or it is supporting an open source project by hiring you and having you make contribution to that? And this is directly, the second point is directly. In first point, the organization would also be indirectly being funded by a proprietary company or more, or individuals. But this is like direct hire from proprietary company, second point. The third one is start your own project. So these are the ways, but you have to figure out on a personal level how you want to become a contributor. And maybe it is very much based on the projects you like. So these things don't even matter to you, and that is all right. Choose the project that interests you and see how you can get employment with that open source project. Be thorough and yourself, be kind and respectful. This point goes a long way. I think these are very common points for everywhere, but like I said, people feel comfortable, cozy and comfortable hiring people from within the community. That is very much because of these points, being yourself, being kind and respectful, and doing effective communication. So this is all very important. Give people credits for where they're due. If somebody helps you, thank them, and just be yourself, be thorough, and of course apply if there are any career opportunities with open source that you see. Please apply. Don't shy away like I did. Here's a nice Drake meme. You can save it. Okay, one sec, water break. So now we talked about all the nice things, but in true world scenario, there's also a requirement for incentivization because let's be real, open source projects require a lot of love in terms of financial contributions. There are real people working on it, and the stars and hearts are not enough. And yes, you may not be in a position to be able to make a financial contribution. So then in that case, it's great to put stars and hearts, give them shout outs on social media, help them expand their horizons and tell people about it, make people use them. Maybe somewhere somebody would be in a position to be able to support them. Now you would come across many open source contributors, that is individual contributors. I'm sorry, I'm missing the term here, who struggle, and many is not the right word, this is wrong. Some open source contributors, individual contributors struggle because most who with such talent get hired by someone or the other struggle financially if their work goes unsupported for a while. I recently saw somebody asking for help with finances on Twitter, and they're a good open source contributor, an individual one though. So they were asking for, it was probably COVID inflicted, but still there are people struggling financially. So we should do our best to be able to support them. Now, money has to come through those who are making money with that open source project. If a big company is using that open source, a certain open source project, and they are not making any contribution back to that project, that's your window. If you can't contribute yourself, tell that company, hey, you're using this open source project and they're awesome, and why not give back a little and maybe try to encourage them to do it. Yeah, I think next point says the same thing. If you use any open source projects yourself and you're in a position to make small financial contributions that you can afford, then please make them, or encourage the companies who use the project to do that, and help publicizing the project, because that helps them as well. Because in terms of money, we have no money. And that's every open source project starting out, right? How you can make money with open source. So for individual sponsorship, actually, I am not sure if Open Collective supports individual sponsorship. I've only seen organizations, so it's in the wrong section. But there's something called Open Collective that lets you take sponsorship from individuals as well as companies and organizations for your open source project. I have seen Nuxt.js take sponsorship here, and today I came across there's a Rust project called Clap. I found out that they are also collecting money via here. And then there is GitHub sponsors, but this requires you to be specifically doing your things on GitHub, whatever you have to offer. Now, you may think that financial support is all the thing that is there to sponsoring all these projects, but there is more to that. There may be people who are financially okay because they have other job and they are also building their open source project on the side. So if you are making, even a small contribution of $1, $5, because yes, things can go as low as $1 on these platforms, they're just to show the support to those people that, hey, we like your project, we are using it, continue building it. And that's a huge morale boost for people like that. So these are the ways you can contribute. Then there are organizations, which means an organization built to support your work and other like work sponsored by people or companies who believe in your project or use it to make money. OISF, where I work, falls under this category. Then there's also Django Foundation, who also take in sponsorship from individuals as well as companies who are using them, and use that to build the project that they are, made around. So that's another way making money. So you can probably get hired by one of these organizations if you want to make money for yourself. And then how you can make money with open source with proprietary companies is, so there are many big companies who are making projects open source these days, right? We have Google doing Flutter, TensorFlow, many others. They have an entire website dedicated to their open source projects. So depending on what kind of open source projects do you want to contribute to, you can get paid to work on their open source project, or you can get paid to work on an open source project that they use and sponsor. So sometimes sponsorship can come in terms of development time and contribution too. There may be small companies who are not able to sponsor your developers' time, but they may have one of their developers who can contribute some of their development time into building your project and making it better. So that is also a nice contribution to someone's open source project. So you could be either of these people if you want to get hired by a proprietary company to work on an open source project, and it will work out. Oh, I sent out a tweet a few days ago where I asked about open source projects that pay people to work on them. So here I've posted a link to that tweet. A bunch of people have mentioned a bunch of really nice open source projects. You can do your research. What category do those projects fall in? And maybe decide if you like something out there and start contributing. Okay, we come to Outreachy. Outreachy is where it all started for me in terms of career. So Outreachy provides 3-month internships to work in free and open source software. It's hosted twice a year, once in summertime and once in wintertime. And anyone who faces underrepresentation, systematic bias, or discrimination in the technology industry of their country is invited to apply. There is a misconception about Outreachy that it's just for women. It's not. You would see a lot of people from underrepresented community. And even if you are not underrepresented on a world scale, if you have faced discrimination, systematic bias in your own country, you are also invited to apply. They have an essay round in the beginning where they ask questions about all these things. And if they find your answers great and convincing, you are moved to the next round of contributions now. And this is a true story. You could apply, any of you could apply if you feel you faced any of that. Now, there are projects in the fields of programming, user experience, documentation, illustration, graphical design, data science. I think I've also seen video editing and chat support projects as well, but I think these things keep on changing. There are always programming projects, yes. So these things keep on changing. So if you are interested in applying, do check out what all projects are out there and what all they're offering. Now, there are perks to Outreachy, and I'm only listing a few. Great chances of finding employment. Nobody bring my 6 months unemployment in this. That was on me. And to be honest, even later on today, what I found was because of my Outreachy internship. So that's great. a stipend of $7,000 for 3 months of work, and it goes for any country, whichever you are in. It's not a country-based stipend. It's completely remote, but you cannot work on other things when you are doing an outreach internship. And of course, there are community-specific perks, which depend on what project you're selected for and what their community brings in. You can find out more about them on their website. Here I've linked outreachy.org. Now, an important thing, communities. So a lot of us skip or are not able to recognize how big of a role a community, and a community is all the people who have helped you get where you are in, being you, what you are today. And so we need to start recognizing all those things, and because community helps in upliftment, giving us courage on when we feel like we can't do things. There are mentors out there on open source projects who would tell you, okay, you can, maybe I can help you get unstuck here, and perhaps you can. And learning new skills and learning from so many awesome people in different areas, and building yourself up. So there are legit, I feel like my mentors are like this here. I am always freaking out about things, and they're like, you'll be okay. It's okay. You're awesome. And my mentor, Victor, is always saying to me things like, you're awesome. And I'm like, are you crazy? And it's pretty awesome how communities can help you grow. And it's very important to be a part of the community. And if you get all of that, which you would in most of the cases, please pay it forward. It's important that if we have gotten upliftment and encouragement from somewhere, we should also give it to other people who need it. Now, Suricata community, we are very welcoming, helpful. We have very helpful people, mostly because it's made up of people who adore the project. And this is meerkats. In case you didn't know what a suricata was, this is a suricata, and this is like a bunch of suricata. I'm probably using the wrong plural word because these are called meerkats. And so this is a meerkat community, and people are respectful here. We have a code of conduct, strong code of conduct in place, which you can check out on our website. We are inclusive of people. We are diverse. We have people from all around the world as a part of our community, and that helps. And if those many people coming together are helping all of these first few points, then that's a great thing to have in a community. It's a nice community. If people from all around the world are coming together and are being respectful and are abiding by your code of conduct, that's a great thing. So if you're interested in Suricata, you're very welcome to join the community, start code contributions, or something else that you might be interested in. Now, this is a little bit about my attempt at making a closed Linux community, in which I had tried to restart Linux Chicks India, which is a community for women who like Linux and for anyone who wants to support women in computing. But we kept it very beginner friendly, irrespective of gender. There are many chapters of this community around the world, and I came across them because of a very active and awesome community in Argentina. And I came across that because one of the organizers there was also a fellow outreach intern. So I came across Linux Chicks Argentina, and I was like, wow, this is great. I should look if there is something in India. And turns out there was many years ago, but everybody got their jobs, and everybody got different kinds of things in their life, so they could not continue. So I decided to restart it, and then a bunch of people came together to help me along with it. So, but we did not see a lot of women participation. We did see good women participation at times, but it was dependent on a lot of factors. So we decided to not continue for the same reasons. Everybody who was trying to help out with things was getting busy with one thing or the other. Some of the awesome people who helped with the efforts off the top of my head are here. Priyal, Coco, Sakshi, Utkarsh, Sanyam, Tanya, Pushplata, Anubrat, Raju, Ayan, and Nikhil. These people helped with the community for about 2 years before we decided to not pursue it further. But if any of you is interested in restarting it, you're very welcome to reach out to me, and we can talk about it, and perhaps you can take the lead. So, do you have to be a pro at what the open source project is about? Of course, not at all. You got this. Look at this pup. You should believe everything he says. Well, he's not a talking puppy. Anyway, so look for the right places to contribute. This point is just to you can probably make contributions to places you don't like, and it's okay. But you will realize when something is a place is right for you to contribute when you enjoy working on that. So that's your cue for right places to contribute. Make use of tags to sort beginner-friendly or mentored tasks. Some organizations, some projects would offer mentorship on certain tasks, so they'll tag them like that. So you can also look for that. That's great. Beginner-friendly tasks are always great, and build upon that. Don't always do beginner tasks. Try to get out of your comfort zone. If you are comfortable with beginner tasks, when you've done a few, try to get to the medium one, probably the mentored ones at first, because that shows growth. That shows the ability, that shows that you have the space and ability to grow. And that's a great thing for people to observe in you, and when you are becoming a part of a community. Learn along the way, because you cannot know everything at once. I've made that mistake. I thought I would learn everything, related to a particular thing and be awesome, and then start contributing and doing things or apply for certain jobs. But that's not how it'll probably work out. You should learn along the way. It's a great way to even retain things, because when we are not when we don't have practical experience of doing something, it's very easy to forget. It's even easy to forget with the practical thing if you're not doing it regularly. So just learning first and then doing something it can be difficult. If it's your way, perfectly all right. Maybe that works for you. But for many people, learning along the way makes sense. And maybe try that if learning all at once is not working out for you. Now we talk about minorities in open source. There's good news, of course. I'm a bringer of good news. Kidding. So minorities in open source are slowly improving. So that's really good news. More and more cis women, LGBTQ+, differently abled, neuro-wonderful people are bringing in their awesomeness and are being recognized for their efforts. And that is the amazing thing about open source. You can give people credit for all that they've done, and you can actually show people what they've done. There's no scope of doubt. So it's great for minorities. So we have awesome people, but we need more, like always. And of course, there's no charge for awesomeness. Kung Fu Panda for the win. Keep on being awesome. Um, if so, this is about making open source software more open for minorities. So one of the best ways to allow minorities in any group is being welcoming and respectful of who they are. If you accept them for who they are, they're already probably uh, comfortable talking to you, asking you questions, and that's very, very important because we know all of us were beginner at once and it was very difficult to ask questions. And it's even more difficult if you come from an underrepresented group. So please be respectful of who they are, accept them for who they are, spread the news of programs and communities for underrepresented people to underrepresented people in your circle, and support them through bad experiences, because everybody has bad experiences, yes, but if we are already not confident enough in what we do, and that happens for many people in minorities, um, then it becomes even more difficult. So please support them through bad experiences, help them be more comfortable sharing their issues with you, listen to them, be friendly, and acknowledge them and their work. These last few points probably go for everyone. So let's try to be this person. And they will thank you for holding their hand, and you will remember somebody held your hand as well once long ago. And that's great. So that's all from me. I feel like I should have done that's all folks thing here. I forgot. Anyway, so let's talk about your experiences now. We have like 12 minutes, and if there are any questions that I am qualified to answer, I'll answer them.
Thanks for that, Shivani. I think that was a exciting session, and I think everyone enjoyed the memes for sure. We've got one question coming into the Q&A box. Folks, if anyone else has any questions, you can either drop them in the Q&A box, or you can also raise your hand and we can raise you to the stage and you can come up here and ask as well. Uh, we've got one question from Rahul already, and it's, I've noticed that there are more open source full time opportunities in the East than in the West. Noticed a lot of folks tweeting about them. How do you think this can be fixed and to make it better for everyone else?
I did not know that, firstly, and thank you. I'll look that up. Um, Yeah, I think when it comes to zones and countries being specific about how we want to do things, how we want to hire people, how we want to be a certain way, I think time zones are the thing which I have seen restrict people from not being a global community, because with time zones comes the challenge of communication, and not everybody is probably ready for that. So I don't know, probably we need to learn effective communication somehow, which is you know async, and make whatever companies there are who are not doing not hiring people from a certain region, or uh, uh, not doing things a certain way, maybe make them believe that it is possible, and uh, talented people are everywhere across the globe. So yeah, I should, however, I think I should look up the real reason why this happens. I'm very uneducated about this. So this is what I feel is a common reason for companies to not hire people from uh, all around the world. But thank you. I'll look it up.
Thanks for that, Shivani, and thanks for the honesty in explaining that. If anyone else in the audience has any thoughts on that, you can also leave that in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and come up here and join us. Uh, yeah, we've got. In the meanwhile, we've got another question from Juliana. Uh, they ask, "How do you feel going from an from being mentored to becoming an awesome mentor, awesome and encouraging mentor?
Okay, so Juliana is my friend and she was also my mentee. And so that's why the question. And thank you for all the compliments along with it, Juliana. And I do not feel that way, to be honest, but I think we all have that in us to not feel great about certain things. Um, I think it was a different experience going from a mentee to being a mentor. When I was being a mentee, I was very thankful for all the things that I got and the experiences that I got, and whatever my mentor could offer me. And when I joined OISF there as well, I was very happy with my mentors. I still am. And whenever I thanked any of my mentors, they always told me to pay it forward. So I think I tried that in some way, but I don't think I'm as awesome as you say I am. So yeah, that's it.
That's awfully humble. We've got. I received one more question earlier from someone who wanted to apply to Outreachy and asked if you had any tips or tricks for Outreachy applicants or aspirants.
I think it's back to you know be yourself, because the first round to get to outreach is an essay question where they expect you to be truthful. All they expect you to be is for you to be truthful. So write real things in there. Be truthful of who you are. Be truthful of the experiences that you have had and why you think you deserve that internship. And then after that, when you start contributing to a project, of course, be vigilant about what that project expects. Reach out to mentors of that project. Maybe start early if you have certain organizations in mind already. Then you could probably start much earlier and start contributing to that project already. So that you become more visible in the community. You see, visibility and community getting connected all over, coming again. It's just very, very important. So probably these things.
We've got one more question from Mangrove. They ask, what does your typical workday look like? I think that's an interesting question. A lot of people must be wondering what it's like to work as a full-time open source developer.
Yeah, there's nothing really different about being an open source developer, probably, except that probably we respect people's time and energy. I don't know. My friends who work in proprietary complain about having to work a little too much and stuff. And I have seen people being more considerate on this side, but of course I speak for OISF. I think it challenge again comes in the form of communication, because we have a very distributed team around the world. So, but I think we manage it pretty well. Async communication works for us, and again, everybody is nice and respectful to each other, one another. So it works out well. And I think I would just plan my day in the beginning for the day. I'll try to, if I'm not stuck on things, and then I will try to go about doing tasks one after the other, as long as I'm not stuck. Getting stuck kind of puts you back a bit, but that's also a part of work and learning, I think. So yeah, that's what a workday looks like.
Right. I was just wondering, just adding on to that, I was just wondering, since I'm assuming that most open source developers, they work, I mean, most of their teammates are not located even in the same time zones as one another. So how do you
Yes.
navigate through that? And I'm sure, with everyone switching to remote work lately, it might
Yes.
be something that everybody can take away, irrespective of if they're working in proprietary or open source software. Would you like to shed some light on that?
Sure. I think effective communication is very important in all of these things. If you are stuck somewhere, ask for help. If you want somebody's attention, highlight them on the chat or reach out to them in private as well if they haven't looked at it. And, kind of align things such that they can happen over a course of 24 hours. So, for example, sometimes if I have to work on something and I finish it by the end of my workday, I would tell my mentor who is in Europe that please review this work and leave your comments on this. And before you wake up tomorrow morning, I would have looked at the things. So that's kind of, we work in an async manner, and we leave comments for one another. And sometimes, of course, we have to make a compromise on the time zones. Like when we had our annual conference, Suricon, that was one time. Sorry, it had to happen with everyone being together. So at that point in time, everybody was up in the US time zone when it was happening, but that's only sometimes. Everybody is generally very respectful of other people's time zones. So we should all be that. We should not expect people to work in their extreme hours, and try to have effective communication, I think.
Thanks for that. I think with that, we've come almost to the end of this event. Thank you so much, Shivani, for taking time out for this. If there are no more
Thank you
questions,
for inviting.
yeah, I think if there are no more questions, we can close the event. Would you like to add some final words before we close the event?
Um, I would just say be awesome and be a part of try to be a part of a community. If you want to get a job, become more visible in open source, and open source contributions don't hurt even if you don't want a job in that arena. So go for it and spread awareness and word about projects which are not getting a lot of financial support. Individual contributors who are not getting a lot of support, it will mean a lot to them. So just do that. I have a dedicated section on my website for such projects which I use and I know about. And I try, if anyone reaches my website, I try to tell people that either give them a star or give them a shout out, or if you can make a financial contribution, go to these links. So probably that's something you could try out, because open source needs a lot of love. Oh, I said that like a rapper in 1 minute.
That's amazing. All right, then, folks, thank you so much for joining in. Shivani, thank you so much for taking time out to do this. I will be closing the event right now.
Oh, Kelly is here. Yeah, thank you.